Good evening, this is Cab, here to drive you crazy, and welcome back to another edition of Boston Sports Talk. Probably going to be one of the last ones I'm going to be making for a while, and we'll just explain that a little bit throughout the video. As you can see, I got little Miss Cabby over here in the background, so don't mind her too much, she just wants to enjoy herself. But let's just go jump straight into this one. So we'll start off real quick with the Boston Bruins, who have been eliminated in Game 6 to the New York Islanders. 6-2 is the final score, and with the series being 4-2. So ultimately, it was one of those games that, the Boston Bruins really had to have a do or die kind of situation going on. And it was one of the things where, it ultimately came down to how well was the goalie going to play. So Tuukka Rask, unfortunately, was unable to keep a low-scoring game. It was 4-1 coming out from the second period, which was a very sad thing to know that we already had to do so much to fight back in Game 5 just to lose by the one goal, ultimately not being able to do anything else since that point. So without really having any reason to show a comeback coming back from the Bruins side of it, it ultimately came down to how everyone is going to start seeing this up and coming off season now for the Bruins. A lot of people want to talk about how Tuukka Rask should not have been in the net that game, but ultimately, the one thing that I will always look at to say is it's kind of hard to say that the most winning goalie in Bruins history is not in this game. A lot of people wanted Swayman to be in the game, but I don't know if it's just due to the inexperience side of it or anything of that such, but it really shows that the Bruins did try to put their heart into it. They really did try to make sure that they could fight no matter what they had to do, but the defense was not there. The offense obviously was not there. And no matter how you look at it, even with the fact that there is still news coming around now, we still get to talk to some of the other players to show that, Tuukka Rask was talking about having a minor hip injury that he was trying to play through this entire playoffs. And you can make as many excuses to it, but Islanders right now are showing that they are to be the better team. Hey, you. Stop messing around. Now, obviously, the biggest things that are going to be talked about is going to be this offseason. Who are we keeping? Who is going to be traded? There's a lot of talk about, DeBrusk possibly being back on that trading block. The people who I would like to say at least stays on this team is the obvious people that you would want to hear, Bergeron, Marchand, and even for me, Taylor Hall, someone who we picked up this season, but was a great pickup for us, someone that I really look forward to actually seeing playing for us this up-and-coming season. With a short season, it was always playing against the same teams a little bit too often, where people were able to figure out one another, and again, Islanders was a team that already had our number from the beginning of the year. So that's why I can't give a lot of discredit to that team. They did exactly what they needed to do. We'll see who we can be able to pick up, who will be losing. Again, I see that Swayman is going to be our starting goalie, but what will happen with Rask will only continue to figure out from this up-and-coming point. The next thing, obviously, to talk about is going to be the Boston Celtics, who is still trying to just go through what they need to do right now in this particular offseason after being eliminated again by the Nets. And the one thing I will definitely say is, whoever ends up being our head coach is going to be a choice that will come with due diligence to be able to provide for a basketball culture that is familiar with winning. So obviously, after Danny Ainge had stepped down, it was kind of a shock for us to know that that immediately happened, but there was a lot of people who had already put that kind of thought process into their own mind. Other things to talk about, obviously, is people to trade for and people who we are going to trade. You know, I mentioned again, Kemba Walker was one of those big names that has seemed to have now confirmed after had originally said that he was already on the trade deadline, back on the trade block in the middle of the season. Kind of put a sour taste in his mouth, and really is showing that he was affected by that choice, and ultimately will be more than willing to be traded away from the team. Now, again, we talk about Damian Leonard. I actually just heard about maybe DeRozan being a good person to be trading off for. Bradley Beal, again, is someone who I've said is either going to get a major contract by Washington, or hopefully the Celtics will try to do something to get him as well. But again, right now for the Celtics wise, we are just in a stalemate to see exactly what's going to happen, who's going to be our coach, who's going to be players that will be gone, and who will be some of the new free agents or trade values that we'll try to pick up. So until then as well, we'll see what goes on with that. The next one to talk about is a very sad and unfortunate game that happened against the Boston Red Sox, losing to the Toronto Blue Jays 18-4. Now, again, we are still second in the division and still 12 games over 500. There's not too many other teams right now that are that much better than us, especially just in our division, our league, excuse me. But ultimately, you know, when you lose the last two games the way that we've been losing to the Toronto Blue Jays, it really shows that our offense is kind of lacking when it comes to decent pitchers, and just our pitching staff is absolutely getting lit up right now. It's an extremely sad situation to know that, you know, some of the players that we have who are showing to be good in our starting rotation, like Perez and, you know, Pivetta and all that, who were, you know, showing that they had a reason to be in that starting rotation, have now been showing that they can get taken advantage of by teams who are within our division nonetheless, and are not really within the same, you know, win to loss ratio as us. Obviously, as well, though, that our offensive side of things have not been exactly the strongest. Well, only, you know, a couple of runs the other day. Obviously, the first game of this series was a great comeback win, but we do have another game against the Blue Jays tomorrow in this 4-game series. So hopefully we'll see what goes on with that, and then we'll have just a 2-game interleague series against the Braves. So hopefully the Red Sox will try to find a way to at least split this series against the Blue Jays, and then immediately go into playing the Braves and see exactly how those games go. But obviously, one other big thing to talk about is the fact that Chris Sale has officially started to do some simulation games pitching off the mound. So he can, or more likely could be, potentially back into the rotation. We look, hopefully, by July or so. But then the big question then, out of the 3 other pitchers who I believe, or 2 other pitchers I would say, besides Evaldi, Rodriguez, and maybe Pivetta, because they have been proving to be good starters for us, is Garrett Richards and Nathan Perez, all having to show that they will more likely have to start doing much better, or they will be out of this rotation for Chris Sale come July time, or whenever Chris Sale is available to come back into the team. And last but not least, obviously, is the New England Patriots, who once again have not really done too much. They're still in the OTAs. A lot of different number changes that have been mentioned for certain players. Dante Hightower being one of the big names to be showing up again in the OTAs has really put a good feeling to a lot of people who wanted to make sure he was going to be coming back into the team healthy and ready to go for this up and coming season. You know, they're still saying a lot of the opportunities for the quarterbacks now, since Cam Newton is still currently out with his finger injury, and even showing that, once again, that Mac Jones has proven to be understanding the playbook very well. A lot of people have been kind of giving mixed emotion feelings on how he's been doing during these OTAs, but a lot of people are either saying he looks bad or he just doesn't look like the kind of quarterback that should be a starting quarterback, not necessarily providing the height, not providing the build. You know, there's a lot of little things like that, but ultimately, as you know, even with Tom Brady, remember, he didn't look like a person that should have been a starting quarterback, and yet here he was becoming one of the greatest of all time. So can't give too much hate to it. You can't say too much other than it is what it is by this point, and hoping that with the continuation of how the OTAs go, we'll start to see who are going to be in the cuts this up and coming time. But once again, like I mentioned, this is probably going to be one of my last ones of the Boston Sports Talk that I'm going to be doing for a while, simply because there won't be too much other news until it comes around about, you know, Bruins trades, Celtics trades, and obviously when the Patriots season starts coming around. So I'm going to try to look to do a little bit more on my daily uploads for specifically the Red Sox. I wanted to try and be something, you know, that I can do. I know I only put out maybe 2 videos a week, but I always thank you guys for watching everything. And again, if you did like what I had to share, leave a thumbs up, leave a comment for anything you want to share, and of course the subscribe button is right there. So thank you. My name is Cab, and I'm here to drive you crazy.